This week on the Squatchers Lounge podcast, David and the Reverend Jeff take a look at the Patagons, or Patagonian giants. Just where did these stories come from? Who reported them? And what the heck is Patagonia anyway? I mean, I know it's a jacket. I got a duffel bag. Wait, you're telling me this isn't just an REI product? I knew I should have looked this shit up. Here we go again. Now leading our search for the unpopped kernel of truth in the microwave bag of cryptozoology, the Reverend Jeff Kelly.
Woo! You really need to apologize.
I need to apologize?
Uh-huh.
She called me chief.
Which is a title of respect. She should have called you Tonto. It means stupid.
Ha ha! And that's the way we start off the Squatchers Lounge podcast, season 3, number 38. And I am your host, the Reverend Jeff Kelly. And with me, as always, is the doctor of pseudoscience himself, David Badtorf. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. I've been practicing my pseudoscience today, so I'm ready for this episode.
Pseudoscience for the Patagonian giants. That's right. As usual, you know, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. I just completely lost everything, but we always start off with the news.
And now for the Squatchers Lounge news, bringing you the most up-to-date topics from across the interwebs week after week after week. The Squatchers Lounge podcast. Let's get newsy.
Newsy, that's right. Well, we're going to thank our sponsor, Dr. Squatch Soap Company. That's right, drsquatch.com. Step into the shower, escape to nature, come get some. That's right. I'm up onto the gold moss for your body, boy. That's right, because your boy's going to smell good for his chick tonight. I think that's the one you're working on, isn't it, too, there, David?
Yep. My man parts smell like golden moss right now, too. I'm down to just one bar left, the spearmint basil. So we'll be lighting that up shortly.
That's right. We're going to have to check out the other 4 flavors from Dr. Squatch. We'll contact them and see what the boys have to say. Thanks for sponsoring the show, fellas. First up tonight, science news. Handed down tales tell of ancient sea level rise. Australian Aborigines oral histories may include accounts of a sea level rise more than 7,000 years old. So are they talking about Noah? I mean, is 2x2 on the ark?
Yeah. Basically. No. This is a really interesting thing. Like you talk about the written, you know, like stories of Noah and the ark and all that stuff versus the oral traditions of the Australian Aboriginal peoples, and they actually line up with, you know, these stories like line up with several known floods at the time, which is amazing that they've kept record. I'm sure it's not a literal representation of what happened or a scientific documentation, if you will, but it goes back to that Native American oral history of Bigfoot and how there probably is that kernel of truth that
kernel of truth in the unpopped popcorn bag of life.
Exactly. Where they're not talking literally about these floods, but their floods are in their oral history, and it's
somebody remembered it, and it was important enough to keep telling that friggin' story 13,000 years later.
I know, like 7 to 13,000 years for an oral story to transfer that. That's amazing. That's just that's crazy, and that's interesting.
Absolutely. Well, we'll move right along on to the next one here from CSI, the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. Yeah, the CISPOP.org site decides Bigfoot lookalikes tracking the hairy man beasts. Thanks to Joel Nichol of the Skeptical Inquirer, volume 37.5, September, October. This actually came from 2013, but I thought it was pretty cool because it's the skeptics kind of trying to have an idea of what Bigfoot might be.
Yeah, and he goes through the comparisons and makes a bunch of kind of logic based statements, assuming that what people are seeing could be true-ish. But then
it's not a bear.
But of course, he boils it down to, well, the most reasonable analog is always going to be a bear, right? And he's not saying that all the people who are saying that there's what he calls non-hoaxical, like basically good encounters, could always be a bar.
It could be a bar.
So I'm just going to go ahead and say it like I have been before. You are more likely to think that a Bigfoot is a bear than a bear a Bigfoot.
That's the way I look at it as well. How many misidentifications do we have going the other way? But
I've seen a bear, and I know what that thing looks like. And if something looks kind of like a bear, like I saw this, I forget, it was a Moscow Terrier or something like that. This gigantic, curly black beast of a dog today. It could have been a bear, but that could have been a misidentification, but it was a dog. That could have been a misidentification at long distance, but not an upright walking hairy bipedal ape.
So check it out. It was an interesting article. If you need a link, hit me up. I'll give it to you. So Carl Schucker.blogspot.com. He's checking out Europe's elusive man beast, the woodwose. That's right. Captive wild man being tamed by virtuous woman. Swiss tapestry, late 1400s. Sorry. I mean, yeah, there's all these creepy images from like cathedrals, churches, and Knights Templar built, just all these weird wild man things. I think even in the Roswell Chapel from Angels and Demons or whatever the Da Vinci Code was, there was some kind of a wild man in there. And it goes back and forth. David and I have been teasing, and we're going to do this one of these days for cryptids around the world. I think we might have to get into that next time.
Yeah, I think that might be the next one, but there's a lot of history and a lot of documentation. It goes back into the feral, children raised by wolves, kind of a thing.
Romulus and Remus sucking at the she-wolf.
Yep, and some of these other stories, it's like Mowgli's Jungle Book and things like that. This is one of those articles where if you just take everything and throw it at the wall, well, then it just looks like a big mess of stuff. However, there's some interesting ideas that we'll talk about. So we'll have to save this. But there is this huge there's a rich history of this hairy man, and
wild
even
man type presence.
Yeah, wild man sort of a thing, and even Linus documented some. We know how he was always very much more anthropomorphic than he probably ought have been. If you look at his orangutan, it actually is wearing clothes and stuff like that. So definitely interesting to see whether or not Grendel was a woodwose.
I know my Grundle is not a woodwose, but Grendel very well will be.
Mine's a little bit Neanderthal-y, if you know what I'm saying.
That's right. That's why we're getting the Dr. Squatch soap out after it.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a bunch of interesting questions about and are they talking about a feral human, or is it allegory in one way or the other? Did they put hair on the characters to make them appear wild, or did they take the wild creature and because they couldn't figure out how to draw it to make it a man?
Anthropomorphize it.
Anthropomorphize.
That's the word. The word of the day is anthropomorphize. All right, well, you can check that one out at blog. CarlSchucker.blogspot.com. Anyhow, IFL Science, as we all do, says, should we just let the pandas die out, for God's sakes? I mean, as pointless as taking off the pants in order to fart, one expert has branded panda conservation efforts. Despite the serious amount of cash, time, energy injected into saving the bamboo munchers from their march towards extinction, frustratingly, nothing seems to work. Not even panda porn can help them go forth and multiply. Now, we just talked about this last week. For every panda who's refused to fuck the savior species, screw you, okay? But should we just let them die? I mean, we are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these damn animals that don't even want to screw themselves into existence.
Yes. So one of the kind of the tongue-in-cheek version of this is a lot of people are saying absolutely, because this is the face of conservation. People, so I guess they would say this isn't some sort of like, government funded project. This is a privately funded project, and people throw money at the panda bear.
The WWF even uses the panda bear, the World Wildlife Federation, our foundation, not the Wrestling Federation.
Yeah,
panda bears. They're friggin' suck the change out of my pocket, you little bastard. Oh, look at them eyes. It just makes me want to throw money at the screen as it is. It's like, oh.
So what happens when you do that? Whether or not these creatures invariably will, at some point will probably go extinct, whether that's in our lifetime or, we can slow that process. But by taking care of the habitat that they live in, there are actually 5 other critically endangered species that live with them, and the whole habitat is in danger. So basically the synopsis is we absolutely should do everything we can to save the panda, because it makes people willing to spend money on saving the biome in which the panda lives, that actually could save a lot more things than just
because there's tigers in there too, and the tigers are dying off as well, and all these super big animals that are mammals are going to die off, and then what are we going to eat later?
As pointless as taking off the pants in order to fart. I'm going to use that for going forward. That's
all right, people. This was another sad one here. One news now, the tvnz.co.nz New Zealand. The police finally released the name of the Hamilton zookeeper who was mauled to death by a tiger. Now, my significant other works at the Oakland Zoo, and they have a procedure that when there's certain calls go off, they empty the zoo. Zookeepers report to get guns, both darted and real, when there's a wild, vicious creature loose in the zoo. And it happens, from sun bears to tigers to lions and bears. Oh my! Unfortunately, in this particular battle, the zookeeper met its end at the hands of a not hungry but very scared and pained tiger.
So yeah, what they're really not referring to immediately is because there are protocols. Obviously, they were cleaning the cage. You're not supposed to have the animal in the cage while you're cleaning it. That you're not supposed to be in there at the same time for multiple reasons, for the animal safety, for your safety, so that things like this don't happen. Obviously, one of those things was not in place. They're not being specific about that. Unfortunately,
this is one of the
one mistake can end your life in those situations, especially when you're dealing with those. It doesn't have to be a meat eating tiger. It could be, you could get kicked by a giraffe, and that's the end.
In today's day and age, is there really a place to have tigers in every zoo? Is there really a place to have man-eaters in every zoo, when you could put in LED screens that would be able to produce such HD quality views you'd swear the animal was sitting there in front of you anyhow, and reduce the risks of these things happening over and over again? If the animals are not endangered and don't need intervention, I know a lot of the tigers do, is that one of those cases where we've just technologically moved past where these people are still trying to hold on to?
There's an arcane aspect to the zoo, and then there's the research and fundraising aspect of it too. There's a bunch of different.
Right, it's not just a simple picture of
It's not a simple
zoo or not,
whether or not you want a tiger or not, but also when they say, well, 3 baby tigers were born in captivity, well, they ain't going back to the jungle, so now somebody's got to take them.
That's very true, but that could be done in a whole lot different aspect than the zoos the way they're done now. Anyhow. Absolutely. We'll move on to another side subject, and this is just, kind of a PSA night. Missing hiker found dead in the Yosemite National Park. That's right. Timothy Nolan was reported last week missing after he failed to return from a backpacking trip. Park officials say visitors spotted Nolan's body on Tuesday in the park's backcountry. No details about how he died have been released. Park officials say Nolan, 36, had obtained a wilderness permit and had planned to hike out from Happy Isles to Tulamine Meadows. An extensive air and ground search began when Nolan failed to return from that trip on September 9th. Park officials are continuing their investigation into Nolan's death. So this is one of the things that we were talking about, with the whole David Pilates missing 411 books, the whole conspiracy behind things. If it was really that much of a conspiracy, they wouldn't go through the extensive air and ground search, which went on, and they didn't find him. And, somebody spotted the body on Tuesday. Visitors spotted the body after an extensive ground and air search. Nobody found shit. Visitors found this poor guy's body, laying in the back country. And I don't know how he has died. Those information has not been released as of yet.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, sad things happen, bad things happen. I mean, it could have been, it could have been a lot of things, but wait, the important, the real PSA is, if he had just simply sprained his ankle or broken his leg or whatever, air and ground search, whether it was, successful or not, it's usually more successful when somebody's alive and you can, make a small fire or do whatever signaling you can. But make a trip plan, stick to it, and have somebody that knows that if you're not out within 12 hours of that plan to come looking for you, and then you'll know where you're supposed to be on that route. If you're on that route, they'll search that route, and you can do your best to flag people down before you succumb to whatever you might succumb from. So anyway,
it sounds like he had a plan. I mean, his plan was to go from Happy Owls to Tulamine Meadows. He had a wilderness permit. He was supposed to be back from his trip on the 9th. And when he didn't come out, here it is. It was originally published on the 18th when the missing hiker was originally found on the 21st.
Yeah, it's likely that he had an accident that didn't allow him any time to set up any sort of a signal system.
Exactly. So
that's But
keep it in mind, people, don't go out there by yourselves unless you absolutely have to. Wilderness is to be done in pairs. The buddy system, it really does save lives.
Absolutely.
Just some food for thought. Anyhow, we're moving on to our other sponsor, treasuredmetaljewelry.com. Dude, he's got some really cool stuff under the newly arrived pieces. Big old silver horn, some skulls, some medical leaves, a big old cross that came out there, a kitty cat with some, he's really got some nice stuff on the backside of his newly arrived items. So you go out to treasuredmetaljewelry.com and check out those items. While you're out there, click on the Silver Bullet Contest button. Enter your name, your email, put in the subject line, enter me in a message, click submit, and you are entered into the Silver Bullet Contest. First place winner is 2 ounces of solid silver, 308 caliber replica bullet. That's right, we're giving away one of those. Second place is a 1 ounce solid silver replica of a 45 caliber bullet. And there will be 3 third place winners. That's right, for a total of 3 third place winners for a runner up of a solid copper 45 caliber replica round. And that is also going to weigh in at about 1 ounce. So there you have it, folks. Go out to treasuredmetaljewelry.com. Check out what they've got for sale. No purchase necessary. Just click the Silver Bullet Contest button, fill out the short questionnaire. It ends on the 29th at 11 p.m. And on the 30th of September, I believe that's next Wednesday, we'll be announcing the winners on the air. So time is up. If you're going to do it, you better go do it. Get it done now. Thanks to everybody out at treasuredmetaljewelry.com for sponsoring us again this week. And finally, wrapping up the news tonight, another piece of sad things. The paranormal community is up in arms as the news is just hitting the Facebook pages and everything else. Sparks police identify the suspect in a deadly domestic violent incident. If you people follow the ghost shows, Mark and Debbie Constantino, the EVP experts that you've seen on like Ghost Adventures, I believe they've been featured in a lot of those shows. There's quite a bit on the A&E network that they've done. Well, unfortunately, Mark has been estranged from his wife, Debbie, for a while, and it ended in a murder-suicide today. That's right. Sadly, he kidnapped her, took her to an apartment, and killed her, and before police could intervene, killed himself. 53-year-old Mark Constantino is now dead, along with his wife, and we do give condolences to the families. However, the paranormal people are like, Mark, you can go to hell for killing her. Debbie, may you rest in peace. So I figured I would pass on those sentiments as well. So you can check out those kinds of information elsewhere because we're done with the doom and gloom on the show tonight. Amen. And pass the ammunition.
Yeah, it's been a little rough.
And now for tonight's topic.
That's right. We're going to go ahead and kick off tonight's topic, the Giants of Patagonia. What the hell are we talking about? Well, the stories of the Patagonian Giants go back a long time. Oh, and if you're interested in a Portal Gate update, go out to the Squatchers Lounge podcast, or go out to the Squatchers Lounge Facebook group. Click on Alan on any of the schizophrenic blog posts that are there. And
Richard Allen and the rantings of a schizophrenic ramblings of a schizophrenic Brit.
Yes, at Blogspot or WordPress. I don't know. You can get the address there.
It's all there.
Go check out the latest with the Portal Gate. It's
about every 28 minutes. There's been a new update.
Well, you know, Michael Merchant. This one's taking on that one. I don't even know what Michael Merchant. Why he even watches our show, but thanks for watching, Michael. I mean, we know you were a fan, buddy. Keep it up, you know, and we'll keep up the good work as well. You know, it's all about clicks to these guys. That's what he says about us, but who's chasing Portal Gate? It surely isn't us. Anyhow, we're talking about Patagonian Giants. Patagonian Giants, that's right. What the hell is a Patagonian Giant, David?
Well, it's a giant.
From
Patagonia.
From Patagonia. Okay, well, that wraps up our show tonight, people.
Moving on. So, this is okay. So, the first person to document this in any way, shape, or form, I believe, was the great explorer Magellan, and he went around the Horn of South America. And saw these indigenous peoples that were large, giant, if you will. You know, reports coming back of people being 9 and 12 feet tall, and really nothing in the hairy ape man kind of a sense. And then, you know, as people came around, you know, the next person says, "Well, I saw them, and they weren't 12 feet tall, but they were like 7 or 8." And then, you know, so eventually, you know, in some more modern times, people go out there and they actually, you know, have cause to measure the Patagonian giants, or would they assume were Magellan's Patagonian giants. And yes, they were quite large at the time. You know, Europeans would have been about 5 foot to 5'4", and they were in that 6+ range.
You know, what's funny about that is, my deceased mother and I had a discussion about the Bigfoot tales in America from the Europeans in the 16s and 1700s as they would come over here. And she was sure that it was not a mistake for the larger Native American tribes because, like you said, the Europeans at that time were sleeping in like 4.5-foot beds. So they weren't very big people. And they're coming over here, and the Native Americans here were 5'8", 6 foot, 6'3". I mean, those were kind of the average height ranges of what the Native Americans on the East Coast were when they were meeting them. But the descriptions of the hairy man was definitely taken away from the Native Americans because they were always clean shaven and very little hair on their face whatsoever. Matter of fact, my other half-breed uncle who died in Vietnam, Uncle Lewis, had no facial hair whatsoever that would grow on his face. He had white peach fuzz that barely covered his face, and that was it. Not a stick of the glorious beard that I have, but that's not my fault. You know, and while we're talking about that, let's go ahead and get our tip of the week, our new segment in Seeking Enlightenment with your old pal Wes.
I love this graphic.
And now, Seeking Enlightenment with your old pal Wes. Brought to you by WesLosner.com.
A wise man once said, "You cannot retard that which has already been tarded." Seriously, that would be retarded.
Well, there you have it. You can't retard something that's already tarded. And that's kind of the way my head feels about the stories of the giants. Just, you know, David, don't you know that the Smithsonian destroyed hundreds of giant skeletons in the Smithsonian? Did you know that?
Well, I mean, I did, but I don't even think that they were from down here. So what I think is the real link, aside from the fact that they used the word giant, and who knows how, you know, obviously Ferdinand Magellan was not speaking the English at the time, but you know, Patagonia, because so he called them the Patagons, which would have been they assume the large-footed people. Pata being the Spanish for foot, gon being Spanish for nothing.
Gigante.
No, nothing. So it's actually been debated whether or not Patagonia is actually the land of the big feet, or not. And that may have been something that we just basically made up.
Bullshit our way into. Yeah.
There was actually I'm trying to find it. There were a couple articles I read just before here that was talking about how there was a really an important fictional novel at the time that, you know, seagoing captains would have taken along to read in the quiet times and whatnot, that had very similar words for places in it. So he might have just used Patagonia basically as a derivative of a novel that he was reading versus giant footed people. But the Patagons could have been something out of this book, and Patagonia came out of that. But so, I mean, like we always do about this time, where is Patagonia?
Oh, we're gonna have show and tell time. Where the hell is Patagonia?
Where the hell is Patagonia?
Where the hell is Patagonia?
It includes basically Argentina. And,
so we're not talking about Pangea. We're talking about Patagonia. Okay,
yeah, we're not talking about, like, you know, Mapanguari stuff up here or any of this. We're talking about basically this high, you know, we're talking Andes Mountains, craggy rock.
Oh my God! I saw the guys on Top Gear cross over the Andes Mountains in some shit boxes. Nothing can live up there.
Yeah,
goats
yeah.
barely live up there. Although there was a citron that kept following them like it was stalking.
Como se llama? Yeah. So I mean, we're looking at like llama country. Down here we have this grassy steppe. And basically, so Buenos Aires like is not a part of Patagonia. It's basically like everything sub Rio Negro up through here, down through the Patagonia ice, the South Patagonia ice.
Oh,
fields.
so Patagonia's just got like the shittiest parts of the continent.
Pretty much, which and then you go back down into this, like, you know, the Tierra del Fuego.
That's
this
cold
is like,
down there.
This is very, I mean, south of Falkland Islands. The next landmass, which is right over here, is Antarctica. So this is like we're talking penguins and all sorts of other stuff. But we're talking also, imagine, to the surprise of Ferdinand Magellan and crew, that you're coming and seeing scantily clad people laying on the rocks, fishing, so all of a sudden, this really does have a very interesting, you know, feel about it.
Magellan, boy, he just couldn't stay at home, could he?
No, yeah, this is kind of the thing. But so I mean, basically, like all of a sudden, you're thinking of like almost superhuman powers because you're naked on the rocks, or there are people.
Yeah, because they're on the same. They're in the same airspace and they're freezing their asses off. They're covered in seal skins. You know, they got muckluck boots on with mittens and 3 pairs of wool gloves underneath them.
Yep. Now they did have you know, rather, you know, it talks about their thick moccasins, and that might be where the big foot thing came from. But so I mean, not to just poo-poo this right out of the gate, but this is not okay. To be fair, right up in this little area, right up in here, there may be some coniferous forests, or there may be some forests at all. But the rest of this is just going to be craggy rock and grassland, and
crappy rock and grassland. Yeah, exactly.
Just like, you know, I mean, yeah, okay. So there's a little bit of greenery in here, but this is not where we expect to see a large primate.
Yeah, I can guarantee you that Highway 9 is not a pretty of a road as it shows out to be either.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is in context of let's get back to the equator up here. I mean, this is at the pole. This is as much cold, desolate area as Alaska. I mean, you know, there's just not the amount of
in Alaska
mountains.
There are chicks in bikinis riding around on quads.
Oh, well, yeah. So Anchorage. So you know, here I am down here. Anchorage can have like higher temperatures than us at, ambient temperatures at sometimes. But if you go 6 inches under the ground, it's still frozen.
It's still frozen.
So it's still frozen.
Nothing really froze there.
Yeah.
They grow everything above ground in tents.
Yeah. Well, it depends on where you are. I mean, it's a lush, amazing environment. It just happens to be bitterly cold a lot of the time. And that's what, like I say, these explorers came down here and they're legitimately like freezing parts of their bodies off and see people naked on the rocks, basically. And you're like, wow, that's really impressive. But it's just, it's a story of the resiliency of the human body more so than anything else. All the depictions of these peoples were very much like indigenous peoples that we would expect to see, up in the areas where you expect to see peoples, and it's just they didn't expect to see people down here, so it immediately became something special. It's like we need elephants, seals, and penguins. That's all they wanted to see down here.
Oh, and look, there's a robust lady catching fish on the shore. Isn't that miraculous? Where did she come from? That was the thing, is everywhere these explorers went at the time too, they never expected to find people, yet almost every single place they did go, guess what they found?
People. Well, and so I'm trying to find where there was ever any indication that these were a hair-covered people or big-footed at all. Like, it reminded us of what we're thinking of for like the North American Sasquatch. So there was a gentleman who wrote, a blog about the Patagonian Bigfoot ? He does Patagonian Monsters, the guide to Patagonia's mythical and real monsters and legendary beasts. So he makes some interesting things, but basically, is it the southern abominable snowman? Is it, like the Yeti of the South, or is it, but basically it says, no, Bigfoot's the North American thing. This is more like something else. He goes into Homo erectus. He's like, it's not an ape, it's a man. And so it's a interesting, different take. I don't think that I took a whole lot from that particular blog post, aside from that. Somebody who studies those stories is like, no, it's not a freaking Sasquatch,
not a Sasquatch.
But over and over and over again, I see it referenced, and people talk about the cryptids of the world, they just lump that one in there too, because the word giant comes up, or because Pata means foot, so they just went ahead and just made that the land of the Bigfoot people. So very, very interesting. Interesting. Also,
in all actuality, they're probably like the Sherpas of the Himalayas. They're probably just people born of that, and their bodies of DNA have changed and mutated into being able to survive in that environment. That's what make them big, so that so they have more circulation, they have more blood, they can stay warmer. There's a whole lot of reasons that people change in the way that they look. That's why we have all the different indigenous types of peoples around the world. But back then, at the time of Magellan, they didn't understand that. They still thought that people were sub races, and there was some really weird shit going on in the brains back then.
You talk about the crappy things that we have done or do in the past, and he actually took two of the Patagons back with
to
him
present to the Queen,
to the Queen, and they both died.
Yeah. What the hell, dude? Really? You're gonna take two? We saw that in Master and Commander. What do you think? We should take one of these back to present to the Queen? I think we should take a pair. Well, they did that with people too. They did that with Native Americans when they came here. They did it with a lot of different races of people, and I don't believe it was a question.
Yeah, they just went ahead and did.
Yeah, you don't speak the language. Would you like to come meet the Queen? Yeah, come meet the Queen. At the end of a stick to this pointy thing, I'll stop pointing you with it as soon as you get in these chains. Come on over here and get in these chains, and I'll stop sticking you with this pointy thing.
Oh, everybody understands that. So yeah, that was kind of the well, so we may have bones of the Patagons, in deep within the recesses of our time and arcane, boxes somewhere. But
being examined by top men.
Yeah.
Those okay. Here's not a joke. I've been to the Smithsonian. I've been to a lot of. I'm not talking about the Smithsonian. There is not the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian Institute is spread out over hundreds of buildings throughout Washington, D.C. and several other places around Maryland and Virginia. When I say I've gone through the Smithsonian Institute, my mother and I, through middle school for 3 years, every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, went through several museums a day, going through the Smithsonian Institute museums in DC, and we've seen a lot of stuff, including warehouses full of big brown boxes with just a stamped number on it, with no fucking idea what's inside it.
What's even in there?
My grandfather asked, "Hey, what's this stuff over here?" They're like, "Yeah, that just got moved in here from warehouse B. It was given to the collection in 1812 by a couple of guys who didn't come back from, the Spanish Indonesian War, and we're just getting to open the cases now to find out what's in them." Literally, so much stuff is donated and collected by the Smithsonian Institute that it will take a lifetime of lifetimes before anybody would ever actually get an eyeball on half of what's actually there to go through.
So what you're saying is it's not a giant cover up with the giant bones. It's just that they can't find the shit.
We would go
in the
broke
boxes.
literally, we would go broke trying to hire enough people to try and find anything that's not on display at the Smithsonian. They have underground warehouses of just priceless artifacts that will never see a person unless somebody goes down there to look for something else ever again, because we just don't know they're there. I mean, who knows what's actually in those boxes? The Smithsonian surely doesn't. They haven't even opened a lot of the crap that was donated in the 1800s, let alone the early 1900s. Plus all the stuff that's happening now, they still chronicle and document everything that's going on with the history of the world now. It's mind-boggling to think that, the Smithsonian burned these. No, they're probably in a box somewhere in warehouse 217 AD 61234B in the basement, and we'll find it in 3118.
Yeah, the act of putting it down there, code name. What are we going to do with all this stuff? We need to burn it. That just means put it away. Mm-hmm. Yeah, something as simple as
it's in the circular room, not the circular file. The circular room. What do you got? A cat coming in through your backyard? Well, I think that's going to do it for us on the Patagonian Giants this week. What do you think, pal?
I think, I said my piece. I don't think it ever had anything to do with Bigfoot. I think we put it in, bring it into the Bigfoot. I actually found a couple YouTube links that I was going to bring up, but it's again, Monster Quest takes the Bigfoot thing and makes the show out of it, and they're chasing, they're riding on horseback with the gauchos through the plains of Patagonia looking for Bigfoot.
My God, boys, we are officially dealing with a fucking sand scram.
Everything's a Bigfoot.
Everything is a Bigfoot. So, and everything can be made to be a Bigfoot, and everything the literal translation of this is Bigfoot. Well, no, you see, it's actually, if you look at the skeptical magazines, it's possibly more likely that it was based on a fictitious place in a fiction novel that Magellan probably had on his ship and was reading at the time, because he was a pretty savvy dude with that. There you go.
Christopher Columbus saw UFOs. Magellan saw Bigfoot. That's how we're going to wrap it up on this edition of the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Join us next week for epic Bigfoot encounters, where we'll be talking about the July 4th footage. That's right. Mama Sam Squanch comes through the rock pile, picks up the baby, and goes running off. That's what we're going to be talking about next week on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. So, from a co-host, the doctor of pseudoscience, Mr. David Batdorf, I'm your host, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and we say thanks for watching, and may the Squatch be with you. That's right. Looking forward to that one, man. There's been some talk about it lately. It's just a really good one. People think it's real. I wanted to believe it. We'll look at it in depth next week and find out.
Let's do it. There's a huge backstory.
Join us Monday nights for Bigfoot Entertainment Weekly. We just did Fishing Naked. Next week, we're going to be doing Abominable. That's right. It's getting to be scary movie time. Bigfoot Campfire Stories. I got one coming this week, I swear. We'll see you next week, everybody. Bye-bye. Take care.
In this video, I'm going to solve practice problems on Gibbs free energy. As a quick reminder, here are the formulas we need. We're interested in the change in the Gibbs free energy, and to find that, we use the formula delta G for the system is equal to delta H, so that's our enthalpy, minus the temperature times the change in entropy for the system too. And to find those two, the change in entropy of formation and the change in enthalpy of formation, we're going to use the formulas that we've seen before. So this, for the enthalpy of formation, the sum of the number of moles times the enthalpy of formation for the products minus the sum of the number of moles times the enthalpy of formation for the reactants. And the same applies for the change in entropy. So right here, it will be the sum of the number of moles times the entropy of formation for the products minus the sum of the number of moles times the entropy of formation for the reactants. And that will give us the change in delta H and delta S, which we'll put right here. And the temperature, we can obtain that from the problem. So let's solve a problem right now. So right here we have a reaction, and we want to find the change in Gibbs free energy. And we're given the change in enthalpy of formation and entropy of formation. So let's use the formula I just gave you. Also, we know that the temperature is 25 degrees Celsius. So let's start with our enthalpy, the change in enthalpy of formation for the system. So I'm going to write that in red. Now, we start with the product, so we're going to start with bromine. Bromine has 0 enthalpy of formation, and there's only 1 mole, so that's going to be 1 mole times 0. I'm going to put all of this in brackets just to mark the product. Now, HNO2 has 2 moles, and it has an enthalpy of formation of negative 119. I won't write the units yet just because it would take too much space and it would make just the calculation too long. But just so I didn't write it up here, the delta H is in kilojoules per mole, and the delta S is in joules over mole times Kelvin. So let's continue. We can close this right here, and that will be it for our products, and that is minus the reactants. So we're going to open brackets for the reactants. We'll start with the hydrogen. So we have 2 moles times 0 plus, now we have bromine, again 2 moles times negative 121.6, and finally 2 moles of NO2 times 33.18. To make this calculation even easier, we can just say these two are 0 because of the 0 multiplying there. And that should give you that the enthalpy of the change in enthalpy of formation of the system is equal to negative 61.16. Also, we said that the units used in here were kilojoules per mole. When multiplied times the mole, that would take out the mole out of the unit and we would just get kilojoules. So this is the first part. Now we need to find the change in entropy of the formation of the system. Okay, so we'll follow the same steps for the entropy of formation. Delta S for the system is going to be equal to, again we'll start with the product, so we'll start with the bromine right here, and it still has 1 mole. I'm still going to open brackets, same process. So 1 mole times 152.2. This time it's in joules over mole Kelvin, meaning that we're going to get the final change in joules over Kelvin. I would have to change that to kilojoules. Now that is plus 2 moles times 135.6 minus, we go to the hydrogen, 2 moles times 0 plus 2 moles times 82.4 plus 2 moles times 240.1. We can cancel this one because it's 0, and you should get for the change in entropy of formation for the system a value of negative 221.6 joules over Kelvin. And because we want that in the same units as the enthalpy, we'll change that to kilojoules. You can do the opposite and change the enthalpy to joules, whichever you prefer. So we'll say that this is equal to negative 0.2216 kilojoules over Kelvin. Finally, we'll plug that in our formula. So that was delta G of the system. Then we had the enthalpy minus the temperature times the entropy. We have all of those. This was negative 61.16 kilojoules minus, we want the temperature in Kelvin, so it was 25, meaning that is 298.15 Kelvin, times our value of entropy, which was 0.2216, negative 0.2216 kilojoules per Kelvin. So we will get delta G is negative 61.16 kilojoules plus, and that's because we had two negative signs, plus 66.07 kilojoules. Now we have a simple subtraction, and delta G would be equal to positive 4.9 kilojoules. One more question I could add to this is if this is spontaneous or non-spontaneous, and if you know the terms like exergonic and endergonic, that would apply to. So in this case, when we have a delta G that's more than 0 or positive, then we get a non-spontaneous reaction, also called endergonic. So non-spontaneous. Or endergonic. Well, that was it for this video. In the next video, I will solve a problem in which you're given the delta, the Gibbs free energy of formation for reactants and products in a reaction, and you want the Gibbs free energy of the system. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it and found it useful. And if you did, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe to see more videos like this one.